Welcome to PropTech Power Talks for the London PropTech Show. Today, we are tackling a challenge that many companies in our industry face, moving from endless pilot projects to true scalable innovation. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Johan Wiksell. Johan, please go ahead with your introduction.
Thank you. So my name is Johan. I work at one of the leading residential housing developers in the Nordics. We have a industrialized approach, which I will talk about a bit more today, how we go from pilot to scale. My background is from the finance industry. I started as a strategy consultant, doing strategy work for industrial companies and the private equity sector. And a lot of work after hand was towards the property development and construction sector and real estate. So it felt naturally to take the step to JM. Today, I lead the smart building area, JM, since 6 years before. And since about 2 years ago, I also lead our corporate venture arm, where we focus on partnering with startups and investing to accelerate innovation. So that's a bit of my background.
Oh, thank you for your introduction. So let's start with the big picture. In real estate and construction, innovation often gets stuck in the pilot purgatory. A company tests a promising technology, but then struggles to roll it out at scale. Why do you think that happens so often?
It's because the majority of the industry views each building or project development as unique. So this project-based approach, a decentralized approach, it leads to getting stuck in pilots and not being able to scale, because the conditions and viewing is as a unique is sort of a lack of industrialization. So that leads to start all over again from the beginning. The learnings cannot be transferred easily to new projects, and that leads to you start from scratch again and have difficulties to scale. That is the main reason, I would say, for this to happen.
So it sounds like there's a real tension between the push for innovation and the way projects are structured. Do you think the issue is more cultural, organizational, or technological?
It's a mix. If we look at it from the development and construction part of the industry, the traditional structure in this industry is project-based and decentralized, meaning that decisions are made by someone else a lot of the time. So a general contractor and their specific suppliers that have been tendered for that specific project. And the focus there is maximizing each project's unique outcome in terms of solutions and cost. And this structure worked in the past when there was not so much technology put into the buildings as today, and there was not much requirements. But it's not a model that is well suited for scaling up new technologies in a structured way. And from the technology perspective, of course, it's also an issue for the PropTech and contact the technology providers out there, because they also have a hard time to scale up with a customer and get to scale. If we look at other industries, for example, the automotive industry, they have come much further than our industry in scaling up new technology. They make centralized and standardized decisions. For example, they don't let someone else make the decisions of which brake system or which engines to use, and especially not in each unique car. Because if they would do that, they would end up with systems that would not work together. It would be very hard to maintain and costly to create service. So they use a standardized approach. And of course, we need to have more flexibility to the place where we build, but still the same mindset should be applied, a more industrial mindset of how you scale up and not more product based.
That makes a lot of sense. It feels like a mindset shift might be as needed as a process shift. So if the traditional approach to piloting and scaling isn't working, what's the better way forward? Like, how should companies think about innovation differently?
Use a more industrial approach and make sure you have to plan before of how you can scale and have a structure to scale. I can give you examples of how we do it at JM. We cover the entire value chain from the acquisition to the design to we run our own construction sites, and then we have property maintenance, and we decide essentially exactly which product to use, how they should be installed, and then we match that with about 600 framework agreements. So there's no tendering in the projects. And with that model, we can, which is more standardized, we can go from a pilot, learn, and then we put to what we call our structured capital, how we build, and then roll it out to future projects. So I'll give you an example. We have 9 ways of doing a facade. And those are the only 9 ways of doing a facade that can be done at JM. And if we change something in one of those or add another one, we know the exact effect and the climate impact of changing a material. So that means that we can, or basically we know that it will, the effects it would have, and we can pilot that, and then we can scale it out to and roll it out to all the future projects. And of course, this is a key. We have an ambitious goal to lower our climate impact with 85% until 2030, and working with materials, how to lower your climate impact must be done. It's very helpful if it's done in a structured way. So this is also very helpful when working towards climate targets as well.
Yeah, I like that. So rather than testing technology for technology's sake, companies should be asking questions like, can we scale this actually? Or like, what conditions need to be in place for this to work out? So let's ground this in reality for a moment. Have you seen a technology or approach that successfully made the leap from pilot to full-scale implementation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, the main question to ask before even starting a pilot is how we scale this, given that it's a successful pilot into our future product, or as lead as many buildings as possible, whether you are a property owner or doing new development or construction work. So I'll give you an example, and the principles is very similar how we scale. We changed the access control system. We first found the system that we think had was the best solutions. Then we prepare how should this be installed, how should it be configured, and now we're talking about how should we do it in all future projects. The conditions of how it should be designed, what products should be used on what type of doors. Then we did a pilot. And then learning from that pilot, we can do a process of how should all the stakeholders involved in that installation, what exactly should they do, how should it be delivered over to the end user. That turned out to be a key success factor. So we did a training session and a handover process that we put into the basically rollout model, and then we press the button to roll it out. But it's the same, you could do it for materials. So I think having an industrial approach or a mindset, even if you start small in one specific pilot, have always in the back of your mind, how am I going to scale this up? Or if you can't answer that, okay, what conditions need to be there for us to change in order to be able to scale it up?
Yeah, I do agree with that. On the flip side, have there been examples where promising pilots failed to scale? What can we learn from those cases?
Yeah, I mean, of course, one thing is to have a plan to scale before, but it can also be, of course, that even if you have that, a failure can often be if you underestimate the process and the guidelines and make sure every stakeholder is aligned on what should be done, who should do what. So I think even if you have a promising technology in a pilot, if you don't put the time and the effort to cover the whole process, how it's going to be delivered, you can say. It can also be the case if you start a pilot before you have done a business case or a holistic view, and then you do the pilot and everything looks good, but it turns out that it doesn't make economic sense to roll it out. So I think those are some cases where you can learn from and try to avoid.
Yeah, this is really practical insight. So for companies listening, whether they're real estate firms or construction companies or even tech providers, what are the key steps they can take to escape pilot purgatory and start scaling innovation?
I would say the key, one thing is make sure the questions we talked about are answered before you start to technology, because if you can't get past the pilot scale, the value from this technology will be very limited.
Yeah.
So that's one key. And this goes both for if it's a real estate company, if it's a developer or construction company, or a tech provider. Make sure from the tech provider's perspective as well that the one you are putting the effort to do the pilot with, they have a plan of how this can be scaled. So you discuss that. That is one. If we look at the specific from the buyer side, tech providers take more control of what's important, and that means the solutions and the requirements on what should be done and delivered in the project. So take more of that control. I think that's one key, within small steps, of course. And then also something important, I think, is to be aware and look what there are for solutions out there. Don't build something from scratch before you have checked if there's actually a solution off the shelf that can be used, because otherwise you will likely run into maintenance cost. And of course, last thing is make sure you structure your data and have control of it. That is, of course, a foundation for and have it secured for being able to take further steps along the road. But avoid lock-ins as well is important.
Yeah, those are really some key points that we can take from this discussion. So Johan, thank you for joining us today. If people want to follow your work or connect with you, where's the best place for that?
Best place is to reach out to me at LinkedIn, send me a message, and I'm happy to connect. And it's been a great pleasure to be on your podcast and show, and look forward to
thank you.
London later. The event.
Yeah, hopefully. So thank you, Johan, once again. And that's all for today's episode of PropTech Power Talks. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. See you next time.